Hi guys, sorry that Canvas was mean to you and just completely shut down for our class. It sucks. But I'm just going to go over what I did with my other students in my other periods to kind of just catch up with you. But unfortunately, it was way more interactive with my other classes. So I'm sad that I don't get to chat with you. But you can try to answer these questions in your mind. Again, we can kind of have a conversation virtually if that's okay. This is our agenda and our homework. So look on the left, agenda. We're in module 2. We're in the Gilded Age. And specifically, we're looking at industrialization. We're going to review the assignment that you did for homework, 2.1.1, American Industry. And I'm also going to introduce 2.1.2, Era of Big Business. Keep in mind, 2.1.2, Era of Big Business, has two parts to it, part 1 and part 2. Your job is to only finish part 1. So because Canvas is being super dumb, you get a lot of time to do this assignment, but you need to do it on time. Like if any assignment is super important, this is it, because you're going to see that part 1 affects part 2, and we have to do part 2 next week. So I need you guys to finish part 1 on Monday at 11:59 p.m. So write it down in your planner, write it down on a piece of paper. This assignment, Era of Big Business, needs to be completed by Monday night at 11:59 p.m. You'll see why it's so important later. So let's start with the review of the Gilded Age. Maybe you remember why it's called gilded. It looks pretty on the outside, but it's actually corrupt and has problems on the inside. You might have already noticed a lot of that in the assignment. There was great things that happened, but there was also like people getting abused, workers getting abused. There was a lot of corruption. So good things and bad things. Gilded means to be covered with gold, but not made of gold. So this time period looks good, but there's some sketchy stuff happening underneath. So industrialization, let's dive in. You looked up the definition of industrialization. I wanted to give you the definition of just industry. So when someone says industry, it's an economic activity concerned with the processes of raw materials. Concerned with the processing of raw materials and manufacture of goods in factories. What that technical definition means is this. If you're a visual learner, I hope this helps because it helps me. What is happening in industry is you take something like a raw material, such as cotton. Cotton is raw material. It's from the earth. It's natural. It's untouched. Sometimes this is called raw material. Sometimes it's called natural resource. But again, it's from the earth, natural. You take that raw material and you put it into a factory. This is oversimplified, but you take a raw material, you put it through a machine, you put it in some sort of process, and it creates a manufactured good, a t-shirt. So what is happening in industry is that we're taking raw materials and turning them into manufactured goods. The reason why this is such a big deal is because our country used to be just raw materials. We used to depend on other countries to make our manufactured goods. Now, America can do both. So this time is a lot of economic prosperity, meaning our country is going to get richer and richer. People are going to get richer and richer. Not everybody, but certain people are going to get richer and richer during this time period because we are changing from an agricultural country to an industrialized country. Okay, pause the video here and see if you can answer this question. What were the 3 most important raw materials that were utilized in the Gilded Age? See if you can think of it. 3 raw natural resources that were used in the Gilded Age. They were super important. I'll give you a hint. One of them was nicknamed black gold, but see if you can get the other ones. Okay, I hope you paused the video. Let's see if you got it. Ready? Oil, that's black gold. Just like gold is precious, oil is precious. And it's going to make us a lot of money. Coal and iron. You may be thinking to yourself, wait, I thought there was something else important. But remember, the raw material is iron. During this time, someone figured out how to make iron lighter, and they made iron stronger. They used the Bessemer process, which is like this huge, like heating up like in a witch's brew or something, like it was molten, whatever, super hot, and make it lighter and heavier, and turned it into steel. And guys, steel and all of them are just so important for this time period. These 3 raw materials might sound boring on paper, but these 3 raw materials are going to be everywhere in our new industrialized society. I mean, you guys, of anybody, you should know the importance of oil. You live in Bakersfield. We live in Bakersfield. A lot of people get jobs from the oil industry. Oil has made America a very wealthy nation. Coal is important for all these railroads that we're building. And I think the most important one, if I had to argue, the most important like resource of this time period would definitely be steel. Because steel is a strong yet lighter building material, we can build beautiful bridges. It's going to be used in our railroad tracks. And of course, it's going to be used in our skyscrapers. When we were building with wood and iron, our buildings could only be a couple stories high. Iron is really strong, but really heavy. And you can't really build that high with iron. But with steel, you can build buildings that are so tall that they scrape the sky. Look at this picture in the top right-hand corner. I just always love it. These guys are eating some lunch or hanging out, but man, is that dangerous. These are our immigrants right here. A lot of them Irish, German, and Italian, probably in New York City, building some of our first ever skyscrapers. But as you guys can know, there are no safety precautions, no safety regulations. These immigrants are not being paid well and not being treated well. Does this remind you of anything that you learned about in your homework? Do you remember with the railroads? Which demographic of immigrants primarily built the railroads in America? Yeah, it was the Chinese. And you remember how they were treated, right? Again, immigrants coming into this country, we're going to emphasize that more later, but the Industrial Revolution opened so many jobs. So these immigrants are coming from countries where they didn't have a prosperous life, and they come into America hoping to make something for themselves. They get any job they can, and a lot of these jobs have very harsh conditions, and they suffer discrimination. So it's crazy to think that they willingly choose these jobs, but they kind of have to at this time. Again, railroads look really nice. Trains look so beautiful and innovative at this time. These bridges are unbelievable for this time. But this is the Gilded Age. Things look really great on the outside. But if you take a deeper look, you see some corruption. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is another one I want you to try to pause the video. These 3 raw materials. What do you think would happen if you were able to control or own all of one of these resources? Meaning, what do you think would happen if you controlled all the oil? What do you think would happen if anytime someone needed coal, they had to go to you? Lastly, anytime someone built a railroad track, they need steel. Anytime someone builds a bridge, anytime someone builds a skyscraper, they need steel. What if they had to go to you for this resource? You guessed it. Boom, boom. You get that money. You get that money. You get that money. Yeah. You'd get filthy rich if you were able to control a resource or own all of the oil. You would get very rich. In fact, you might become a millionaire. Okay, monopoly. This is a key term, monopoly. Have you guys played it before? My family, we're not allowed to play it because people's feelings get hurt, and it just never ends the way it's supposed to. It does not bring our family together. It tears us apart. And I am definitely a sore loser in Monopoly. I hate when I go bankrupt. And the flip side, look at the bottom right. I'd like to think that money wouldn't change me, but when I'm winning Monopoly, I'm a horrible person. True story, this happened to me 2 Christmases ago. I was winning Monopoly and I definitely was not a great person. And at the end, I remember winning and feeling so amazing, and no one was around. My entire family walked out of the room because they were so angry. And I was just there rolling in that dough, being like, yes, I just won Monopoly. So that tells me I shouldn't become a millionaire because maybe I won't become a good person. But the question is, what is a monopoly? The game Monopoly can help you, but what is a monopoly? Monopoly is when you control everything in one specific field. So it means controlling one of like those resources. If you control all the oil, you have a monopoly over oil. If you own all the steel, you have a monopoly over steel. If you own all social media networks, you'd have a monopoly over social media networks. So if someone was able to own Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter, they would pretty much have a monopoly over social media networks, and they're actually not allowed to do that in 2020. Companies get close. You might be even thinking about a company that you know is super big. They might be close to a monopoly, but they're not allowed to be a monopoly. Now, during this time in the Gilded Age, though, this was our first time where we ever saw a monopoly. When Rockefeller controlled all the oil in America, it was the first time that that ever happened. Think back to the game of Monopoly. You win when everyone else goes bankrupt. Let's just say that Rockefeller would have been really good at Monopoly because he did it in real life. Wow. Before you go and like, dang, he's like super rich, the government did nothing to stop it. Sorry, my dogs are being crazy. Our government did try to maybe stop it. They created a law called the Sherman Antitrust Act. Now, look at what the Sherman Antitrust Act is. It made it illegal to form a trust that interfered with free trade between states and other countries. What this is basically trying to do, it's trying to stop monopolies. It's trying to stop people from forming a trust. But if you're Rockefeller or if you're another monopoly, there is maybe a way to get around this. And that could be by splitting up your company into smaller ones. This is still kind of what companies do today. If they're getting too big, if they're getting too large, they'll just break up their company into smaller ones. It's a way to avoid the fact of one company owning all of something. Oh no, I have 3 companies that own it. You can get 3 different managers, but you're still at the top. Now, what's crazy for this time period is Rockefeller didn't even need to do this. Either did Carnegie. This law was written so vaguely and this law was not enforced that the men that had monopolies during this time didn't even stop having monopolies, and the government did nothing to stop them. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know how to word it, intimidating. Rockefeller and Carnegie and Vanderbilt and Morgan are top millionaires for this time period. They had more money than the national government. Can you believe that? In fact, the national government at one point was such in an economic rut that they got money from JP Morgan. They got a loan from an individual person. So when I say that these people are rich, I'm saying these people are rich. And so when the government says stop having a monopoly, they're like, what are you going to do to us? How are you going to stop us? You know? Okay, moving forward. So here's the problem with the Gilded Age. There's an inequality of wealth. From 1860 to 1900, the wealthiest 2% of American households owned more than a third of the nation's wealth. Just stop there for a second. The wealthiest 2% of America owned more than a third of the nation's wealth. Wow. Look at the next line. It says, or the ending, it says the bottom 40% had no wealth at all. Oh man. So what this is telling us is that there's a 2% at the top. They own a third, more than a third of the nation's wealth, while 40% of Americans are barely surviving. Now, there's of course people in the middle. There's middle class people. There's people that have some money. You know, that there's still a big group of them. But what's crazy at this time is that there's these two men right here, Rockefeller and Carnegie. Okay, let's take Carnegie for example. He owns a steel company. Guess what the name of it is? It's called Carnegie Steel Company. And he has workers that are barely surviving. While Carnegie is making his millions and millions, his workers are barely making ends meet. So that's the inequality that's happening during the Gilded Age. It's not saying that everyone should be paid exactly the same, but what it's showing is that there's this huge gap of the really, really rich at the top and the really, really poor at the bottom. Now, our assignment 2.1.2 is called Era of Big Business, and it's going to focus on these two men right here. I could have done all the millionaires, but I find these two guys to be the most fascinating. So we have Rockefeller and we have Carnegie. You're going to learn intently about one of these men. You're either going to be a Rockefeller person or a Carnegie person, and you're going to learn how they made their money, how they treated their workers, how they treated other competition, and how they donated their money. But what's interesting about these two men is that they were given some nicknames. Carnegie and Rockefeller were both called captains of industry, and they were called robber barons. Think to yourself, the nickname captain of industry, does that sound positive or negative? The nickname robber baron, does that sound positive or negative? Keep in mind, Rockefeller and Carnegie were called both of these nicknames. So what do they mean? Captain of industry. It means they made their wealth and then they used it in a way that would benefit society, such as providing more jobs and increasing productivity. Robber baron. Typically employed ethically questionable methods to eliminate their competition and to develop a monopoly in their industry. Often, they had little empathy for their workers. So again, Rockefeller and Carnegie were called both of these names. They made their wealth, they used it, they provided so many jobs, they donated a lot of their money. Sometimes they were called a captain of industry. But you're going to learn in your assignment that sometimes they did things that made people think that they were a robber baron. So, what's the assignment? We're going to look at sources and we're going to learn about Carnegie or Rockefeller. There are certain documents that are associated with your person, And you're going to really, really learn about your person, Carnegie or Rockefeller. When completing part 1, you're going to grab evidence from the document and you're going to cite it. So when you're filling out the chart, you cite which document you grabbed the answer from. You're going to fill each box in the chart. You're going to write informally, so that means casually and quickly. And you're going to try to use all documents. If you really hate 2 of them, you don't have to use 2 of them. But I'm asking you to try to use all 6 documents. Before you freak out, not all of them are written documents. Some of them are short videos. Some of them are pictures. So when I say 6 documents, I should have said 6 sources. I want you to try to use all of them to fully learn about your person. So I'm going to go to Canvas right now. I'm going to go to your course, and I'm going to pull up, I have the assignment already pulled up. So here's the assignment. There's an introduction and 2 questions. You're going to complete those. And this is part 1. So in a moment, I'm going to tell you who you got assigned. And you got assigned either Carnegie or Rockefeller. There's going to be documents right here. And these are going to be the documents that you use to learn about your person. You can see Carnegie's first, document 1, and you click on the hyperlink. Document 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, don't freak out. Some of this is pictures, some of these are videos. Underneath, you have Rockefeller. Okay? Oops, someone is here. That's cool. You have Rockefeller, and you have those 6 documents as well. So you'll read the documents, and you'll fill out the chart. You'll cite your evidence on the right side, and you'll answer it on the left side. How did he acquire his wealth? How did he get rich? How did he treat his workers? How did he treat the other competition? How did he donate his money? As you're reading in the documents, you're grabbing the answers from there. This right-hand column about notes is completely optional, so don't feel like you have to take notes on every document. The goal is to use all documents to fill up the chart. Are you going to have multiple answers in here? Yeah, because you're trying to use all documents to fill out this chart. Industrialist, this is where you'd put their name. Industry is their job. So what resource or what company did they have? If you're Carnegie, you're going to get the steel company, and if you're Rockefeller, you're going to get the oil company. And lastly, after you're done filling out the chart, you are going to decide if your person was more of a robber baron or a captain of industry. Again, it's completely your opinion. If you need to look up these terms again, you can online. But after learning about your person, were they more of a robber baron or a captain of industry? Now, your job is only to do part 1. So all of this has to be done by Monday at 11:59 p.m. Next week, it's going to be your job to teach someone else about your person. So if you got Andrew Carnegie, you're going to be teaching Andrew Carnegie to the person who got Rockefeller, and vice versa. So I'll say it again, I'll say it 20,000 times. This assignment needs to be fully done. If you don't know your person, you're going to really mess up your group. So you need to know your person well. You need to try to use all 6 documents. If there's a problem with anything, feel free to email me. But this is your job. Know your person. Okay, who's your person? I posted it on the Canvas assignment, so let me show you. Da, 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 da. Era of big business. Here's your list. Find your name. Wherever your name is, that's the person you got. So we got 11 people over here for Carnegie, and we got 11 people over here for Rockefeller. Again, make sure you read the right sources. The first person is Carnegie, then it's Rockefeller underneath. Okay? This part can be informal, this whole chart, fill it up, bullet points, everything. But this part right here is formal. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, all the instructions are written again right here. You can rewind this video if you needed any explanation, but I hope that that makes sense. Again, this is due by Monday at 11:59 p.m., and you need to make sure that you know your person well, because it's your job to teach it to your classmates. So with that, have a beautiful weekend. Sorry about Canvas, and I hope you guys stay safe for Halloween, whatever you're doing.